When posts circulate online, we verify to make sure that we have accurate information, and that is especially important when it comes to politics. Behind the scenes, there's a legal battle underway. It's pitting Maryland's Republican candidate for governor, Dan Cox, against the Maryland Board of Elections. A lot of confusion here in southern Delaware. A plane that was sent to Martha's Vineyard full of asylum seekers just last week was set to arrive here in Georgetown, Delaware, some 20 miles away from the president's beach house. But that plane never showed up. Here in Washington, Capitol Police have been through a lot. Of course, there's been the pandemic, and then there's the violent storming of the Capitol. And in the months following January 6th, the Capitol Police saw resignations in its top brass. I want to tell you a quick story that sort of describes the feel of what it was like in there. And frankly, Larry, if you watch 6 hours of that debate or just 10 minutes, you may have seen something similar. And because of this, they now have one less congressional seat. And that's the recipe for a collision course between two incumbents where only one of them can win. And at the end of the march here at First and Constitution, you'll see that there's a small group of pro-life advocates that are here gathered with a huge banner and a huge police presence as well to make sure that the two groups are kept separate. Between climate change, the reversal of Roe v. Wade, and high-profile mass shootings, young people have been very vocal on social media about the need to get involved in politics. But whether that's going to translate into votes this midterm is unclear. Meanwhile, in second place, you could see Donna Edwards has some 35%. She's trying to get her seat back. She held the seat for 5 terms from 2008 to 2017. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has been trending on Twitter this week for vetoing 26 bills in just the last couple days. And that includes many that had wide-scale bipartisan support. These are projections. The actual ballot counting will likely continue for days. There's just a real lack of faith among young people. I remember in 2019, I was there covering the school walkouts. There's just little confidence that our leaders can address climate change with so much deadlock. Are they right? Is big, meaningful action possible? Republican challenger Yesli Vega was in Triangle, Virginia on Saturday, while Democrat incumbent Abigail Spanberger was in Woodbridge at an early voting rally, as both candidates make their case to voters in Prince William County. Spanberger, a former CIA case officer who was elected to office in 2018, pointing to her record in Congress.
The legislation that has been signed into law to bring technology back home to the United States, to invest in our roads and our bridges and our infrastructure, through the bipartisan infrastructure law.
Hello, fellow patriots!
Meanwhile, Vega, who serves on the Prince William Board of Supervisors, was hoping to capture the message that worked so well last year, bringing Governor Glenn Youngkin into office.
We started a movement here in the Commonwealth of Virginia last year where we said that parents absolutely mattered. And guess what? We made a statement last year in November, did we not?
Yeah. Historically, midterm elections spell trouble for lawmakers in the president's party, especially when the president's approval rating is low.
I'm Yesli Vega.
Vega has tried to put the attention on the economy, with inflation soaring at 8.3% in August.
Groceries, gas, everything costs more, yet politicians in Congress ignore the problem.
But following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the Spanberger campaign is looking to make this the primary issue of the campaign.
Yesli Vega cheered the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade.
Both candidates answering questions on abortion access this weekend.
The contrast between my opponent's position on abortion and mine could not be starker. I support a woman's right to choose. I do not think that as a elected official, I have the right to dictate the choices that a woman makes about her body.
I am pro-life. I always have been and always will be. As a law enforcement officer, I've stood up for the defenseless, the voiceless, and I'm going to continue to do that in every capacity that I can.
A month and a half to go before Election Day as both candidates start their sprint to the finish. You know, you could try it right now. If you pull out your phone and Google something about the governor's race, you're likely to get an ad as one of the first results. But making one of those ads, not as hard as you might think. We visited a digital marketing expert who showed us how it's done making an ad for my bio page. Take a look.
We literally could do food delivery, right? And the headline, best hamburgers in DC. I know you're not a terrible journalist, right? But you could literally say terrible reporter, right?
Oh God.
You could say half off sale today only. You literally could type whatever you want, right? Mm-hmm. And it shows up, and there's the headlines, right?
And it was really just that easy. Minutes we're talking about. And for the keyword Evan Koslof, it would have been less than $10 to get that ad. Obviously, Leslie, a lot more expensive to pay for a Google ad where the keyword is a candidate's name.
Wow. Okay, so with 2 weeks to go until Election Day, less than that actually, you found that both of the campaigns are using these ads.
Yeah, we're talking about a lot of money. It makes sense that it would be so much money. Millions of dollars when you factor in YouTube ads, which is, of course, owned by Google. And in some cases, we found campaigns linking to mainstream news outlets like Axios and the Washington Post, but with a changed Google headline. Outside the Russell Senate building, a small group of young people are huddling together. They're talking game plan. Moments later, they're heading inside, bringing their message to lawmakers. That's when the singing begins. They're singing to Jata Freeman. Here in the office of Democratic Colorado Senator Michael Bennett, Jata makes her point.
My birthday is tomorrow. I will be turning 18. And with that comes the ability to vote. And so I would just want my vote to matter, my voice to count as a DC resident.
These advocates are part of a group called 51 for 51. They're fighting for statehood, just like many before them. But what makes the group unique is their strategy. They're trying to change the rules in the Senate. And this is when it could get a little bit complicated. So let's slow things down and dive into Civics 101. Typically in the Senate, you need 51 votes, a simple majority. But complicating the matter is something called the filibuster. If just one senator takes the floor and keeps talking, he or she could theoretically delay a vote indefinitely. And there's only one way to stop a filibuster. It's something called a vote of cloture. That is 60 senators coming together and voting that the filibuster should end. And this brings us to the group's plan. They want to change the rules in the Senate and get rid of the filibuster for bills relating to DC statehood. That would mean they would only need 51 votes, not 60.
We need to have a vote. You know, we need to have a voice, especially because all of this is happening in our city, but we don't matter. We don't have a voice in what's going on.
And this idea of getting rid of the filibuster is certainly not unprecedented. In fact, over the last decade, lawmakers have been chipping away at the filibuster. And there's blood on both sides of the aisle. First, in 2013, it was the Democrats. Frustrated by GOP resistance, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid triggered the so-called nuclear option for the first time. They voted to change the rules so that you only needed 51 votes to confirm lower-level nominees in the executive and the judiciary. 4 years later, this would come back to bite them. The Republicans were now in charge. And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell led his party to use the nuclear option once again, this time to confirm Supreme Court justices with just 51 votes. So in a way, this is just a continuation of a trend. So says Alan Morrison, the Associate Dean at George Washington University's Law School. He says this is just yet another attempt to weaken the filibuster.
Until the filibuster rule was changed by the Democrats during the Obama administration, nobody wanted to touch the filibuster rule. Once you start to unravel the filibuster with one party, there's no way you can put it back together again.